What is a virtual machine? Well, in its most basic form, a virtual machine is just a file or folder of files. That's basically all it is. So, when you think of a virtual machine, think of it as just a regular computer. You have a computer, it's got a hard drive, it's got RAM or memory, it's got a CPU, it's got a network card in most cases, whether that's a wired or a wireless connection. And that wireless connection can be Wi-Fi, or it might be 3G or 4G or whatever the case might be. And you have some sort of input device and you have some sort of output device. Whether an output is going to be a mouse or a printer, or a monitor or a printer, an input is going to be a keyboard or a mouse. Okay, pretty straightforward for the most part. A virtual machine is simply going to be a software variation of the same thing. So you're going to have a certain amount of CPU, memory, hard drive, and network allocated to your virtual machine based off of a configuration file known as a VM file. And as soon as I pull this up here, I'll break down exactly what that means and why they are what they are. But the idea behind it is simply to allow you to make things more easy to work with. So normally when you're looking at a computer, if that computer was, let's say you knew at a certain time the power was going to go out at your location. And let's say you had 3 computers in this location. Well, if you knew the power was going to go out but you needed to keep those workers working, you could, if they were a laptop, you could tell them to, close the lid on their laptop, get in their car and drive to another location where the power is going to be operational. Well, that would allow you to migrate them from one location to the other. Well, vMotion does the same thing. Now, vMotion, I get a lot of questions on this, so I'll cover it real quick, is the ability to move one virtual machine from one host to another. They have to be under the same vCenter server administration in order for this to be done in 5.5. In 6.0 there is a slight change in that, and we'll talk about that more when we get to 6.0. But vMotion allows you to move a virtual machine from host to host. So the shared storage and the CPU are tweaked, so you make sure that the information is moved from one host to another host. That's why we have shared storage. I said, and the only thing that gets modified is the memory. The locks go from one host to another. Now, I'm going to bring up the data store, I'm going to browse the data store to the ES6i SAN and show you guys what this looks like. So, we have a bunch of folders. Okay, here's the virtual machines, right? These are all the virtual machines that I have installed and ready to go on my machine, right? Well, I clicked on 551, which is right here, and it brought up this. What you see here is actually going to be all of the files in the folder. Now what you end up getting here is you have the VMX file, which is going to be the details to what this is the virtual machine files, how it's actually connected. What does what, why does it, where it goes, that type of stuff. The VMDK is going to be the virtual hard disk, virtual machine disk. And if you look over here, we have 500 meg is used right now, almost 600 meg out of 150 gig. So the very, very small portion of it is actually utilized. Then we have the NVRAM. It says 8 kilobytes, which is going to be about 8 gig. That's what I gave it. And non-volatile memory. Then we have virtual machine log, and these are just informational files for VMware to reference as they're going along. And then we have some of the other files as we go along, but the VMX is this guy right here is going to be the actual configuration of how the virtual machine is built. This VMX with the little squiggly line here means that the device is on and operational. Now if you were to look at, say, CSR5, actually let's take a look at ASAV. ASAV, if you look here, the VMX file is here, and notice how VMX file is not open, which means it's not powered on. So that's a key indicator that this is a powered on box. Yeah, this is where things are getting written. The VMX.ICK is going to be a variation of this file, and I don't think you're going to need to know this for the lab or for the exam, but it's just important to make sure you know how this stuff works and what exactly they are. So the VSWP is a virtual machine swap file. So these are just the files of the folder that makes up the virtual machine. That is what a virtual machine is. Now, when it comes down to the other details of it, if you wanted to, you can go in here and you can manipulate these files. Now, let me point out something to you that's actually pretty cool. I'm going to close this guy out, and let's say, for instance, that we have, you've got a virtual machine running on a host, and let's say you have a host in Chicago, you have a host in Milwaukee. In your Chicago office, you happen to have a email server. Your email server is aging, it's on legacy equipment, you're having issues with it. You want to move that virtual machine from that host to a host up in Milwaukee that's got a brand new server, lots of memory, it's working great, no issues. So what's the one thing that you could do to fix that? Well, the most common thing, and this is the benefit to VMware that I like the most about it, is this. You click on the virtual machine that you want right here, and you can actually do an export. So you click on this and you go to export OVF template. Now you click on this guy and you specify which device you want to do, and I happen to click on CSR2, and you can do a single file OVA, or you can do a folder of files, which is an OVF. What this allows you to do, this allows you to take your virtual machine that you've deployed, you have running, everything is good to go. You take this guy and you are able to export it from VMware, from your ESXi host, to a remote share. Whether it's locally to the box you're connected to, or whatever the case might be, as long as it's network attached, whether it's through the switch or directly attached storage, doesn't make a difference. You can go in there and you can move that file off of your host and export it. I typically do OVA because it's a single file. Then you get a .OVA. You do that, you export it, and depending on the size of the file, it might take some time to download. But you export it, and then once you've exported it, then you can move it to whatever host you want to. So in this case, assuming you don't have vMotion enabled or some advanced feature, let's assume that you're not even running vCenter. Let's say you've just got a couple of real basic hosts set up and you're using vSphere to manage them. Okay, everything's gravy that way. You go in there, you export your OVA to your local computer, and then you need to copy that file or cut it, whatever the case might be, from where you're at, from Chicago to Milwaukee. So you copy it. So it's a several gigabyte file. It's going to take a little while to copy, or you load it up on the laptop and you drive it up. Or because Milwaukee and Chicago are about an hour away from each other. So you drive it from Chicago to Milwaukee, you get there about an hour and a half later with traffic, and then you take your drive, let's say you take your computer, you plug it into the network, and then you log into vSphere and you do an import. So you upload the file. You deploy OVF template. So this is how you export it. Now how do you import it? Well, you file, and then you would go to you click on this guy. File, and then you would do a right click, and then you would do a right, where is it not showing up? New why is it not showing up? That's really weird. It's like not showing up here. I'm actually having a brain fart. I don't know why it's not letting me deploy OVF template. That's what it is. And then you would just go find out where it is. So I just I was like, wait a minute, where is it at? I'm looking for a deploy. It's right there. So you would deploy OVF template. And then what you would do is this guy right here would allow you to go out to the computer that you want to, that your OVF template sits on, and then you'd be able to import it. And that's one way you can handle that. So that's the most common thing that you can see, and I'm showing you this because of the fact of some of the real basic stuff that you might see when you don't have vCenter managing if you don't have vCenter managing your hosts and you need to make a change, most people that I deal with have vCenter enabled. They have a semi-decent sized infrastructure. They need vCenter to manage it. But if you don't, if you're a small customer, you happen to be running ESXi, and you can even run ESXi for free. And there's a question: how do you run it for free? You can actually run it for free, and there's if you're running 5.5 and above, there's no limitation as to how many virtual machines you can run, or a limit to how much memory you can have. The limitation is on the hardware itself, and I can deploy my free license. You can get a free license with VMware. You deploy your license, and you go from there. You deploy it, and you're able to deploy. You lose a lot of functionality. Like, for instance, you won't be able to do the enterprise level services. Let me show you what that would look like. Now, if I click on here and I go to configuration and I go down to license features, I can do everything that you see here. I can do unlimited virtual SMP, virtual center agent for VMware host. I can do vShield endpoint. I can do APIs, HA, hot pluggable virtual hardware, vMotion fault tolerance, data protection. So this is what comes with. I have an evaluation copy, and what you see, everything here that you see is what you get when you have the Enterprise Plus license. If I was to deploy my free license, which if you wanted to, you would click on the edit key here. You would say assign a new license, enter key, and then you would copy and paste that guy in there. It would do a lookup on it. I think it does like an MD5 or a SHA lookup, and then you'd be able to assign the key, and that's how you would do that. And then away you would go. And this is then a lot of this stuff would go away. You'd have just very little functionality at that point. But your license would go from evaluation mode to would never expire, and then you'd be good to go. So that's where a lot of people they tend to go with that, is making sure that they have what they need to do for what they need to do it with. But that's the one thing that people I most commonly see with very, very small organizations. They don't even have to pay for it. They're like, well, why not go Hyper-V? Well, for one, I don't know Hyper-V. I've never played with it. But from what my experience with Hyper-V, you still have to pay for the licensing of the server. With ESXi, you don't. That's if you're going to go very, very basic functionality. So if you're going to be doing anything advanced like vCenter or something like that, or if you say, for instance, you want to do distributed switches, you have to do the Enterprise Plus license. So if you know you're going to be doing vMotion and stuff like that, you might as well just go to the distributed switch. You might as well just go to the Enterprise Plus license and be done with it. It's going to give you all the advanced features. We'll take a look at how vCenter would look in an upcoming video, but that's basically how it would work. So if I wanted to, I could take, let's say this guy right here, let's say CSR2, I don't know, or I'm sorry, that's the wrong box. Let's see. Okay, this guy right here. He's on a VM version 10. So I could take 5, and he's got 2 gigs of RAM. I could right-click on this guy and go to, I can go to File. I can go to Export OBF Template, and I could say that, and then I'm going to say OK, and it's going to export it and export it successfully, right? So if I come over here and I open it up. So I have my CSR sitting in here, right? Now it's in here, it's an OBA file, everything's good to go. I copied it down from my virtual machine. Now what I can do is I can click off on this. I can go to Deploy OBF Template, and I'm going to pause the video, find the file, and I'll be right back. So I found my file, I clicked on it, click on Open, and there that's where it's coming from. I click on Next, CSR, and I go CSR, we'll say 10. I click on Next. I'm going to put it in the ESXi SAN, where I'm going to place it. I'm going to give it, it's going to be thin provisioned. I'm going to click Next. I'm going to put it in the VM network. I'm going to say Finish. And now it's deploying it. So it deployed it, successfully completed. CSR10's there. If I right click on this guy, I go Edit Settings. I won't be able to because it's on the wrong virtual machine version. But it's the same thing as CSR5. They're the exact same box. Now I'll have to go to vCenter server to modify it because of the fact that it's got the some of the settings for like doing the telnet connections to it and stuff like that through the firewall are the same, and I'd have to modify them. But that's the general idea of how you would do that. And so now I did that because of the fact it's such a small file. But if you had a, let's say for instance, like this Windows 7 Pro, this guy's taking up a lot of memory. I'd have to right click on him and I'd have to shut him down, then I'd have to export it. As a matter of fact, let me show you this. Alright, in this example here, I've got a Windows 7 Pro, which is the exact same box as this guy. This virtual machine right here is this virtual machine right here. All I did is I built it previously in a different deployment. I did an OVA, an OVF, and I exported the OVA. And then when I need to, I can import it. Now it's 4.3 gigs. This is a fully installed version of Windows 7 Pro. Fully installed, patched, licensed, or I'm sorry, it's not licensed. Good to go there. And it's got a couple of other applications installed on it. So from a perspective of how you can manipulate these guys, you can go in there and you can install, you can export and import as much as you want. Now I could deploy another Windows 7 box if I wanted to. All day long. All I have to do is close this guy out and go to import. I'm sorry, deploy OVA template. I'd have to what do you call it? I'd have to navigate to where the file is sitting and then import it. But it's going to take a while because it's 4 gig of file. So that just gives you an idea of how that would go. So I just wanted to give you guys an idea of how you could do that. Now the nice thing about this too is when you're dealing with a, let's say you got a folder of files, you got an OVF, and like these guys right here. If I was to right click on these guys and go to, I'm sorry, let's go browse data store, and I would click on the Nexus. Now, in this case right here, I have a bunch of virtual machines right here, right? Now, if you see right here the VMX file, you have to do this per folder, so you have to upload, if you're going to deploy multiple Nexus devices, you have to have Nexus, Nexus 1, Nexus 2, Nexus 3, Nexus 4. You can't deploy all of them from the same folder because of the fact that this folder right here is going to store all of its files. You'd have to go in and have it set up for each additional box. You'd have to have an additional folder for it. But once you've uploaded this, if you were to right click on here, it says click on add to inventory. This is how you would actually move and deploy the virtual machine to here. That's how I was able to get N7K1 and N7K2 uploaded. So if you have the VMDK file and some other capabilities, you can simply just upload them, upload the folder, which is just by clicking on this guy, create a new folder, and you could do that. Actually, if you click on this guy and you upload folder, navigate to where it's at, and then upload it that way. And then once it's uploaded, right click on here and go deploy, add to inventory, and that's exactly what I did here. And then that's how it loaded N7K2, and then or in this case N7K1. So that's how you would do that. And then once it's uploaded, you're good to go. So that's basically how you can manipulate your virtual machines and all that good stuff that goes along with it. It's relatively straightforward, but as long as you understand what the process is as you're going through, it's pretty straightforward. So that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about in this video. So we now know what it's like we know what a virtual machine is. It's just a folder of files. You can import them and export them. And it's easy to do if you understand the concept behind it. And then if you have a situation where I made the mistake several times where I would deploy Windows 7, I would install Genus 3, I would install VMware Workstation, I would go in and do some other things and get it all situated, and then I would have it would bug out on me. Or I'd do something and I'd blow away the ESXi and I would lose everything. Instead of exporting it and then re-importing it down the road. So, just some word to the wise: don't be like me and don't be dumb. Make sure you understand the capabilities. So that's pretty much what I want to talk to you about in this video. I hope this has been informative for you. I want to thank you for viewing.